B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Buchim Habayim for all the new people, some old people, Baruch Hashem. Tonight we're going to continue our series, Mishnah Pirkei Avot, our MUSSAR Pirkei Avot series. We are up to 174, I believe, today. But this shiur today is going to continue what we started the Mishnah last week, talking about the dangers in our own Jewish communities that unfortunately sometimes fulfill the verse "Me'alsaich u'me'alvaich b'mich Yetzer," which the prophet says that your destroyers, your ruiners will come from within you, meaning that we are our own worst enemy in so many words. Unfortunately, anyone that digs deep into Jewish history, whether you want to go as far as back as 3,000 years ago, when Moshe Rabbeinu made a decision to bring some Erev Rav, some fake converts, without consulting Hashem like he usually does, and they caused us trouble and continue to cause us trouble to this day. Or the 2,000 years ago at the Bet Mikdash, where the Gemara says that when did Hashem decide to destroy the Bet Mikdash? Abaye says, Anshe Emunah Avadu. Before Hashem decided to destroy the Bet Mikdash, he said, let me see if there's any way for this generation to do tshuva. Let me see if there's any way to do tshuva. How are they going to do tshuva? Well, you're going to wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to start keeping. I'm going to start putting, becoming modest, throw out all my clothes that are not modest. Like Baruch Hashem, like one of our tzadikot students from Canada did today, Baruch Hashem, a big chidush Hashem, woman that watches our lectures already for the last few years, mamash unbelievable chidush Hashem today. She publicized that she's throwing out all of her clothes, all of her immodest clothes, that even though she already started doing tshuva already for years now, still there was always this little Amalek in the closet of all the clothes that she doesn't wear anymore, but they're still there. You know, the high heels and the immodest dress and the mini and the this one and that one. And that's the Satan staying in your closet just in case you want to lose your mind. And there's a mitzvah of destroying Amalek. Now, since we don't know who the physical Amalek is, we have to look at our sages. What way can I fulfill the mitzvah of destroying Amalek? Now, Amalek has a gematria safek. Amalek has the same numerical value as the word safek, which means doubt, which is the primary job of Amalek, is to create doubt within Am Yisrael. That's why even a Jew could be Amalek. Even a Jew could be Amalek. Why? Sometimes a Jew goes so far away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he decides that not only is he not going to follow the rules himself, but he's going to get other people to stop following. Like this wicked person I told you people a few times about in New York that I met one time. And he told me that he's very proud that he caused 7 guys that went to yeshiva to stop keeping Shabbat. 7 times. So I told him, now I know what kind of evil you are. So when I pray every day, 3 times a day, I do Amidah, and I pray for Hashem to destroy the minim, the malshinim, all of the evil people. Now I have kavanah. I have your picture in my mind. Why? That's bemet. That's what you pray for every day, 3 times a day. You pray for people like this to die. You hope for them to do tshuva before they die. But if they don't do tshuva, it's better off they die. For all of Am Yisrael and for themselves also. And even though this seems extreme, this is what our Torah says. This is what our Torah says. It seems like ISIS, but this is what Torah says. This is what Torah says. This is what Kadosh Baruch Hu says. But in today's politically correct world, very few people are brave enough to speak the entire Torah. We're very, very picky and choosy what we say, what we don't say. If we say this, maybe people are not going to come. If we say this, maybe people are not going to donate. If we say this, maybe this is going to happen. We do all types of cheshbonot, all types of math and accounting for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which unfortunately is Amalek himself. And that's what we have to understand, that we have to understand that sometimes the biggest destroyer is also your brother. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw, the Gemara says that the generation of the first and the second Beit HaMikdash had a bunch of giant rabbis, huge, giants, one bigger than the other. But unfortunately, the average rabbi decided to hide behind a closet when it came to rebuking people. When it came to telling people, keep Shabbat, stop wasting seeds, stop looking at girls that are not your wife, stop. Nobody wanted to do it. So Abaye says, Anshe Emunah Avadu, meaning people don't have real Emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu to say the truth. They want to be politically correct because they want to be liked. He says, this way, no one is ever going to do tshuva, and if that's the case, I have to destroy Beit HaMikdash. Why? If I don't destroy the Beit HaMikdash, then they're going to destroy themselves. There's not going to be an Am Yisrael, chas v'shalom. The same thing happened before every one of the pogroms and inquisitions that we've had throughout history. Let us not think for a second that Hashem punishes for no reason, or that the punishment came from the goyim. Like some goy decided to be Hitler one day, and he says, I'm going to just kill a bunch of Jews. He wanted to kill a bunch of Jews, but the stamp to allow him to do it is always a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So when anyone asks you, where was God during the Holocaust? There's only one answer. Every other answer is a lie, a fabrication, a political correctness. There's only one answer. Where was God during the Holocaust? My grandfather died in the Holocaust. My grandmother died in the Holocaust. My cousin this. Everybody has somebody that died in the Holocaust. We all hate it. But the answer is, where was God during the Holocaust? The only answer is, what do you mean where was God? He pressed the button. He's the one that did it. The fact that Hitler, Yimach Shimo, and all of his followers hated Jews already made Hashem decide to make them the tool, and they'll get punished for it. Doesn't mean what they did is right, chas v'shalom. But the reality is that Hashem does everything. He runs the world very precisely. And anyone that looks at the history books and sees how Am Yisrael was as far as religiosity at the time before the Holocaust, unfortunately, we were as bad as we are today. In some parts of the world, like Germany, for example, there was over 80% assimilation. 8 out of 10 Jews would marry Goyim. 8 out of 10 Jews, meaning that we were one generation away from being wiped out. No more Jews. People think that the Holocaust is the worst thing that happened in the last 70 years because 6 million of our brothers and sisters died. Yes, it's horrible, but there is actually something that caused a lot more death. Not 6 million. According to statistics, 36 million, maybe even as much as 40 million. 40 million Jews have died over the last 70 plus years because of assimilation, because of intermarriage. Because when somebody intermarries, the seed dies. Judaism dies. A Jewish woman marries a non-Jewish man. Yes, her children technically are halachically Jewish, but it's almost an impossibility for those kids to actually practice Judaism when their father is Christian or Catholic or atheist or whatever he is. They practice Christmas trees. They practice all types of other stuff, which means that if it wasn't destroyed with the mom, it'll be destroyed with the kids. Meaning it's 1, maybe 2 generations away, there's no more. When the father marries a non-Jewish woman, when a Jewish man marries a non-Jewish woman, that's it. That's the end of Judaism for him. And this is actually one of the primary messages that the original founders of the Zionistic movement, like Herzl and his friends, tried to preach to the people. A destruction for Judaism. They hated Judaism. In fact, Herzl, it's known, he converted his son to Christianity, and he himself had a dialogue with the Pope, which is in his letters. You could find them today. It's available. And saying that his primary mission is eventually to destroy Judaism by how? By converting all of Am Yisrael to Christianity. It's not for no reason that really religious people hate Zionism. It's not for no reason. It's not because we don't like Bibi Netanyahu. We care less about Bibi Netanyahu. Care less about most of those people. It's not about that. It's about the ideology. The ideology of Zionism is anti-Jewish. Now, that doesn't mean you hate Eretz Yisrael. Anyone that hates Eretz Yisrael has something wrong with their brain. That's where your brothers live, your cousins live. What, if there was no Eretz Yisrael, where are 8 million Jews going to go? Where? They're going to go to Saudi Arabia? They're going to go to Dubai? They're going to come to America, you think? They're going to let them in here? Mapito. So, of course, we have to be pro-Israel, but not pro-Zionism. But the problem is not Zionism. The problem is not Christianity. The problem is not Catholicism. The problem is not even atheism, even though all of those things are causing damage. In no generation in history has Christianity been so aggressive at missionizing and trying their best, spending over $300 million a year just in Israel alone to convert Jewish people to Christianity. Now, $300 million for Americans doesn't sound like a lot of money. Why? There's probably a few people down the street that are worth $300 million. It's probably a few people down the street that are worth $300 million. So when a whole movement, when a whole religion spends $300 million, when it's the richest entity in the world, it's like you buying a donut for 50 cents. Nothing. But when it's in Eretz Yisrael, $300 million is a significant percentage of the gross domestic product. It's a significant percentage of the GDP of the economy itself. Number one tourists in Eretz Yisrael are Christians. Number one donors in Eretz Yisrael, Christians. Unfortunately, they're using their money to destroy us. Catholics as well, in different ways, same ways. Atheism, unfortunately, results from a lot of different places. A few simple things that have caused atheism in recent history is, unfortunately, bad rabbis cause a lot of damage. Rabbi causes chilul Hashem, goes to the casino, people see him in the casino and say, oh, if this is Judaism, I don't want to be Jewish. Why? This is a joke. Or they see the rabbi going to all types of clubs. Or they see the rabbi is stealing. Or they see the rabbi Shem Yachem playing with little kids in an inappropriate way. You see chilul Hashem. You see Jewish people doing bad things. Not always a rabbi, but everybody that's religious looks like a rabbi. So that's one reason. People excuse themselves to become atheist. Another reason is because they're so confused of what kind of upbringing they got, and they don't really know it right or left, and they're just left distraught, frustrated, and get to a point of carelessness. So you know what? Whether there is a God or isn't a God, eventually I'm going to meet him. For now, I'm living as if there isn't. So they don't necessarily always call themselves atheists, but they act like they are. Why? They don't follow anything HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. But the biggest reason of all, of why we have so many atheists, and why we have so many Jews converting to Christianity, is because of ignorance. Ignorance by the people, ignorance by the rabbis. Ignorance by the people that are supposed to learn how to live an appropriate Jewish life according to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the instruction set of the Torah, and ignorance by the rabbis that are supposed to tell them what to do. And a big part of the reason is because, unfortunately, political correctness restrains people's speech, but even more so, their desire for this world. Now, my rabbi said a very interesting thing in today's shiur. He said, how do you know if your rabbi believes in Olam Haba? How do you know if your rabbi believes in Olam Haba? He says, no, he teaches, he says, he teaches, fine, but what does he teach? What does he teach? How do you know he believes in Olam Haba? He can tell you about Olam Haba till next year. How do you know he believes what he says about Olam Haba? He says, if the primary message in the shiur is that you have to change, you have to fix yourself. That you leave every shiur a little bit brokenhearted, a little bit distraught, a little bit, man, I can't believe I got so much work to do. I got to fix stuff. I got to keep Shabbat better. I got to watch my eyes. I got to be nicer to my wife. I got to be nice. I got to do a lot of stuff. If you leave the shiur like that, if he's rebuking you in a certain way, in a shiur, privately, whatever it is, he believes in Olam Haba. Why? Because that's when that's going to count. Why? Because if he doesn't do it, gets to Shamayim and say, how come all your students don't keep Shabbat? How come all your students don't do anything that I said? How come your students only do 10% of what I said? How come they don't even know how to keep Alachot Pesach? How come? Oh, you didn't tell them? So you weren't worried about Olam Haba. So then someone asks, what other option is there? If he doesn't teach, he doesn't rebuke. So what, he doesn't believe in Olam Haba? It's like, no, he believes in Olam Hazeh. Why? Because if he doesn't rebuke you, then he has a different message. What's the different message? Give tzedakah. Why? Because tzedakah is Olam Hazeh. Because he gets the benefit in tzedakah in this world. He likes this world. He's worried about this world. Make sure you give tzedakah. We're good in this world. So, it's important to know, how do you know if somebody is a rabbi that you should listen to? If he always calls you a tzaddik, always, like you never have to fix anything, he's not a rabbi. Why? Because that's not the rabbi's job. Rabbi's job is to encourage you, cheer you on, but at the same time tell you have stuff to do, just like a boss. If you work for a company, if you ever worked for me when I was on Wall Street, if you did what I said, you'd become a powerhouse, you'd become a multimillionaire. If you didn't, you get fired. Simple. Very simple equation. But on the way to one of those destinations, getting fired or becoming a multimillionaire, there was a lot of rebuke along the way. Why? Because my goal, at least, was for you to become a millionaire. Why? Because I have no interest in firing you. Why am I going to hire you to fire you? It's a waste of my time. I have to spend between $150,000 to $250,000 in every single employee just to get them to the promised land. Whether they get there or not is not necessarily up to me. It's up to them. But either way, I have to spend the money. So I have no interest in spending $100,000 just to fire you. So I have to get you to become a millionaire so I get my money back. But it doesn't happen by itself. So what happens? I have to constantly tell you, no, pick up the phone. No, say this, say that, do this, do that, buy this, buy that. I have to tell you I have to constantly fix you. That's a boss. That's a manager. That's a person that wants you to succeed. But if the person that's you work for just lets you show up, do whatever you want, you're not going to survive in the company. Eventually, either you fail or the company's going to fail or both. Why? Because people need a push. The only reason why none of us drive 150 miles per hour on the highway is because there's a warning sign that if we do, we're going to go to jail. We're going to get a ticket, we're going to go to jail, we're going to have a lot of problems, life risk, all types of risks. The only reason none of us drink poison, even though sometimes it looks delicious, is because we know we're going to die. The only reason we don't do a lot of things is because there are warning signs. Those warning signs are part of life, meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu designed the world where all of us are naturally scared of everything, except Him. We're scared of everything in the world. Scared of sometimes little bugs, scared sometimes of people. Somebody strange shows up, you don't know who he is. He looks different than me. Oh, he acts different than me. Oh, why is he wearing a hat? Oh, why is he looking like me? Well, what kind of watch is that? Is that a gun? Oh, no, it's just his phone. Oh, and we have all these questions in our head. Why? Somebody just showed up, we're not sure who he is. Scared of people. And the guy says hello in the English accent. It's like, oh, he's a professor. Why? Because we assume that everybody has an English accent is a professor or something. They naturally sound smarter. We're scared of everything. We're scared we're never going to find a shidduch. We're scared we're going to find a shidduch. And it's going to be a bad one. You know, Gemara says, bad woman, bad wife is worse than Gehinom. Why? Gehinom, you know what you're in for. With your wife, you don't really know. It's every day. Everyday news. Everyday news. Shtabach Shemo. Every day. Wall Street Journal. But the reality is, Rabotai, is that we're scared. Scared of everything. But Rabbi Yisrael Misalan says in Or Israel, we're scared of everything except HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because if He designed us in a way that we're naturally scared of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there would be no bchira. There would be no free choice. Meaning, all of us will be tzaddikim. All of us will be tzaddikot. All of us will be perfect, and there's no point of the world. The point of the world is for us to acquire yirat shamayim, to acquire fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so we can do what He says. Why would we want to acquire fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Because He Himself says, without it, it's impossible for you to serve me. You can do certain things. You can maybe have a brit milah for your kid. After all, it's not your body part. You can have a Jewish marriage. After all, what's the big deal, really? You just brought a rabbi, the rest of it is the same. You can eat some kosher food. Today it's very accessible. You can even go to a shiur Torah. Sometimes they're interesting. You could do a lot of things. But it doesn't mean that you're afraid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do you know if you're afraid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? If you're constantly thinking about, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to sin. I don't want to look here. I don't want to look there. I don't want to eat this. I don't want to eat that. Why? Not allowed. If you're not constantly thinking of stuff you're not allowed to do, you have no yirat shamayim. And that's a very dangerous place to be. Because without yirat shamayim, one test, person breaks. Person breaks. It's not going to be every day. Sometimes the Yetzer will build a person, make them feel like they're an important rabbi, important Talmid Chacham for 20 years. Give them no tests. Only small little tests that are nothing. But it'll build them up, make them feel like they're doing great, they're finishing Masechtot, they're learning, they're teaching, they're doing great. One day after he built a reputation, now he has 500 people coming to every class. He's got CDs in every corner of the world. He's got a channel here, channel there. Everybody knows, everybody says. The Zohar Kadosh says that was the Satan himself building him. Why? Because he knew one day he's going to break him in one move. What? He's going to send him one of his students. She's pretty. And this guy never even thought about watching his eyes. For 20 years, he never got in trouble though. Because never had the opportunity. But the one time the student, the little 20-year-old student, 25-year-old student, is looking at this 50, 60-year-old rabbi, it's like, Rabbi, you're cute. He looks at her, he thinks about his 60-year-old wife and says, you know what? I already spent enough time with her. She had her share already. Honey, you're too old for me. We know what kind of chilul Hashem this causes? Unfortunately, this happens. Unfortunately, it's happening now, on a regular basis. It's a story, I'm not going to mention names, story happening right now in Eretz Yisrael, unfortunately in a community that's actually well known, very well known community for a lot of righteous people. Head rabbi of the community, Hashem Yachem, doing exactly what I just told you. This is happening. Why? No yirat shamayim. Now, the reason why people don't have yirat shamayim is because it's not taught usually, and it's gotten to the point where it's frowned upon to teach it. People say, nah, you're scaring people, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu scares people. Every parasha, somebody dies. Every parasha, somebody dies. Every parasha, somebody does something wrong, Hashem kills them. Last week, two Gdolei Adon, Nadav and Avihu, he killed both of them. Why? They messed up a little bit. For all of us, it's not even a sin what they did. For them, it was, he killed them. So imagine if he judges the tzaddikim so harshly, what about us? We barely even know halachot Shabbat. Every parasha, somebody dies. Every parasha, there's a death penalty. You do this, dead. Every parasha, second parasha in the Torah, he destroyed the whole world. Noach. So we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world according to his Torah, which the Torah is supposed to scare you. You're supposed to get to a point of loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that is built on a foundation of fear. Why? Because that's how you're made up. You're made up. You were created, all of us were created to be afraid of everything. That's how we operate. If you look at any bio of anybody that you read that was a success as far as money is concerned, common question that people ask billionaires, why do you still work? I mean, you have enough money for 50 generations. Even if you spend $1 million a week, you're still not going to run out of money. Why do you go to work? Now, the common nice answer that people like to tell themselves, oh, I like my job. Yeah, you like your job because you make $50 million a week. It's very easy to like your job when you make that kind of money. But be'emet, why do you go to work? Why? Why do you continue? The real reason is because every single one of them is still afraid of going broke. Now, you don't think it's possible because we're looking from our own $3 pockets, and we look at the billionaire, $50 billion, like, yeah, how could he go broke? It happens. A few years ago, there was a guy worth $37 billion. His name was Ike Batista in Brazil. He famously said that he's going to become the richest man in the world and is going to leave Bill Gates and his friends behind by a wide margin. $37 billion, still relatively young. All of his companies looked like they were doing fantastic. $37 billion, so you know, literally, even if you spend $1 million a week, you're still never going to run out of money. Never. $10 million a week, you're never going to run out of money. Because the interest that the rest of the money makes, you're never going to run out of money. If you just simply put it in nothing, don't even put it in the bank. Just take it, fill up a few buildings with the cash, and every week just come with a truck, take $10 million of cash, throw it in the street, in the garbage, whatever you want to do, buy yourself a Twinkie, and you're finished. You're still never going to run out of money. Ever. That's how much money $37 billion is. Unless HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want it. Unless HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, To'evat Hashem kol gvalev. Oh, you're arrogant. You didn't even say Baruch Hashem. You're disgusting to me. Hashem finds arrogance disgusting. So 15 months later, he lost all of his money. 15 months. Meaning, it was a bigger miracle of how he lost the money than how he made the money. He lost so much money, they came to his house and started towing his cars. Don't you know how embarrassing that is? I'm sure he still has a few million bucks to his name, but this is an embarrassment of embarrassments. Other people that had the same thing happen to them killed themselves. One German guy, after the market crash of 2008, his $9 billion net worth dropped by 90%, he killed himself. So we see, guys, anyone who wants to eat, I don't give it, it doesn't bother me. By all means, enjoy. It's one of the perks of coming to the Shiur Torah for this holy place. They really are worried about your Olam Haba and Olam Hazeh. You figure Olam Haba, you have to come to the Shiur. But how are we going to convince you to come to the Shiur? Worry about your Olam Hazeh, get you fat, and give you some free sushi and cookies and all types of drinks. So if you want, feel free. It doesn't bother me. Like I told you, the internet is my audience. So the the next thing is one, next one's it's okay, it's fine, that's okay, no problem. So we see here, Rabotai Karim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the show, and he wants us to be afraid, but at the same token, he wants us to be afraid in order for us to win in the end, in order for us to eventually get to Gan Eden, in order for us to eventually get to a place where he says, that's my daughter. That's my son. Great, you did your job, you completed your mission. Now, the problem we had at the Bet HaMikdash is that the rabbis did not rebuke us. The problem we had was not just they didn't rebuke us, that even if they did, we got to a point of such commitment to our sins that even if they would have done it, we wouldn't have listened. We like the sin too much. Some people are like that today. That even if somebody rebukes them and tells them the truth, they still don't change. But that still does not absolve the rabbi from rebuking. So the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah, in Masechet Shabbat, says that before HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to destroy the Beit HaMikdash, he figured that, you know what, I'm going to save the tzaddikim. Tzaddikim, don't touch them. So Midat Adin, the Malach HaMavet, comes to Hashem and says, no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I know you're the boss, but it's a mistake in your accounting. Why? Why is it a mistake? The tzaddikim, they need to die also. Because why tzaddik? The tzaddikim, they fulfill the entire Torah. It says, except one mitzvah. What mitzvah? Ocheach tocheach et amitecha. You must rebuke your brother. You must tell your brother, keep Shabbat. You must tell your brother, watch your eyes. You must tell your brother, keep kosher, and so on and so forth. You must. They didn't fulfill that. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu was trying to protect the tzaddikim. He says, yeah, but I know that even if they would have told all of these reshaim that didn't want to keep anything, even if they would have told them, they wouldn't have listened. So the Malach HaMavet, who's so smart, he says, Hashem, you know, but the tzaddikim did not know, which means they were still obligated to do it. Hashem says, you're right. Kill them first. Kill all the rabbis first. This is a message really more for the rabbis than it is for the students. Why? Because there are, unfortunately, a lot of people that look up to this Malach Mirvis, Rabbi Yaron Reuven from UK, because they're afraid of him, because he achieved a certain level of success. But after last week's video where I showed you proof upon proof that this guy is worse than a missionary. Worse than a missionary. He's in cahoots with the Vatican. On a regular basis, either Archbishop or the Pope are constantly on the phone or in his house. He's constantly with them. On top of that, he teaches Christianity in a school. He teaches Christianity to Jewish people. On top of that, he goes to church to give speeches, which Allah says you're not allowed to walk into a church. Better off you die not going to a place of a church. On top of that, he brought a imam, a Muslim imam, to do a Shabbaton at his place. So Muslims, the Christians, the Catholics, on top of that's not enough, he's also now promoting LGBT. Lesbian, gay, transvestites, all of the people that unfortunately have a desire they are not willing to overcome. He's promoting it. Against the Torah. Against the Torah. So, just because somebody has a certain title does not necessarily make them that title. And people that are looking up to him should know that if they continue staying quiet, the deen is also on them. So this Mishnah in Avot teaches us something extraordinary. Well, first, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma tells us you can't just live anywhere just because it calls itself a Jewish community. Just because it calls itself a Jewish community doesn't mean you can live in there. Why? Who's the rabbi? Who's the leader in this Jewish community? What do you have there that makes it Jewish? What? Everybody looks black and white? What? There's a bakery that sells challah? What? What makes it Jewish? The only thing that makes something Jewish is Torah. Torah is the only thing that has preserved Am Yisrael. If it wasn't for the Torah, there would be no Am Yisrael. What kind of Torah is in this Jewish community? So Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says, פעם אחת הייתי מהלך בדרך ופגע בי אדם אחד ונתן לי שלום והחזרתי לו שלום. אמר לי רבי, מאיזה מקום אתה? אמרתי לו, מעיר גדולה של חכמים ושל סופרים, אני. אמר לי רבי, רצונך שתדור עמנו במקומנו ואני אתן לך 1,000 דינרי זהב ואבנים טובות מרגליות? אמרתי לו, אם אתה נותן לי כל כסף וזהב ואבנים טובות ומרגליות שבעולם, אני דר אליה במקום תורה. וכן כתוב בספר תהילים על ידי דוד מלך ישראל, טוב לי תורת פיך מאלפי זהב וכסף. ולא עוד, אלא שבשעת פטירתו של אדם, אין מלווין אותו לאדם לא כסף ולא זהב ולא אבנים טובות ומרגליות, אלא תורה ומעשים טובים בלבד, שנאמר, בהתהלכך תנחה אותך, בשכבך תשמור עליך, והקיצות ההיא תשיחך, והתהלכך תנחה אותך בעולם הזה, ובשכבך תשמור עליך בקבר. והקיצות ההיא תשיחך לעולם הבא, ואומר לי הכסף ולי הזהב, נאום אדוני צבאות. Translation, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says, and obviously we're going to go through it, try not to cover the same things that we did last week, but give a little bit of a new insight on the rest of the Mishnah. Try to finish it tonight. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says, once I was walking on the road when a certain man met me. He greeted me and I returned his greeting. He said to me, Rabbi, from what place are you? I said to him, I'm from a great city of scholars and sages. He said to me, Rabbi, would you be willing to live with us in our place? I would give you thousands upon thousands of golden dinars, meaning 1,000,000 dinars, precious stones and pearls. So many words, I'll give you $1,000,000 just to come. I replied, even if you were to give me all the silver and gold, precious stones and pearls in the world, I would dwell nowhere but in a place of Torah. And so it is written in the book of Psalms by David Amalek, I prefer the Torah of your mouth above thousands in gold and silver. Furthermore, when a man departs from this world, neither silver nor gold, nor precious stones, nor pearls escort him, but only Torah study and good deeds. As it is said, when you walk, it shall guide you. When you lie down, it shall guard you. And when you awake, it shall speak on your behalf. When you walk, it shall guide you means in this world. When you lie down, it shall guard you means in the grave. Meaning, how are you going to look in the grave? There's a whole teachings about something called chibuta kevel. What happens in the grave? Depending on how you guys want to be scared tonight or not, I'll tell you if you want. I'll tell you a little bit about it. And when you awake, it shall speak on your behalf in the world to come. And it says, mine is the silver, mine is the gold, says Hashem, Master of Legions. So, in so many words, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma tells us a Mishnah, teachings that of something that happened to him, that is so extraordinary, it's such an extraordinary event that it's part of Mishnah Pirkei Avot. It's part of our Mishnah, meaning the foundation of our entire oral Torah. Now, nothing that ever happened in our lives is ever going to be in a Mishnah. Why? Mishnah was already written 2,500 years ago. But, what I can tell you is that every single one of you has a Sefer Torah. Every one of you has a Sefer Torah. Every Jew has a Sefer Torah being written with every single move that you make. And this Sefer Torah is what you're going to have in Shamayim. You know how they said, Vaydaber Adonai Moshe le'emor, Daber bnei Yisrael, and so on and so forth? It's going to say, and Steve woke up at 11 o'clock that day, and he decided he doesn't want to pray today. He decided, you know what, let me go to Dunkin' Donuts. And he went and he saw some girl who wasn't Jewish, but he said, what the heck? That's going to be the Sefer Torah. And she had an opportunity to wear a modest dress, but she really was worried if she wears the modest dress, she's not going to find a shiduch. She decided, I'm going to wear the mini skirt instead. Sefer Torah. That's going to be in the Sefer Torah. You go up to Shammai and say, look at your Sefer Torah. It's gone nefesh. Your Sefer Torah is like New Testament. It's like the opposite of the Torah. What happened? What'd you do? Unless a person does tshuva. So now Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma tells us the teachings of something that happened in his life that was so extraordinary, we have to learn it. He says he saw a person, and the person offered him a bunch of money. What? To come to his community, be a rabbi. This, more or less, sounds like a fantastic offer. Why is he saying no? He says, I'm going to give you $1 million. Come be a rabbi. The Chazon Ish, when he did Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, he decided to go to Bnei Brak. Now, Bnei Brak, at the time the Chazon Ish came up there, wasn't exactly a Makom Shel Torah. The Stipler Gaon was already there, he had his Bet Midrash, but it wasn't Yerushalayim. It was that. So there's the Chazon Ish Kvod Harav. Why Bnei Brak? Why don't you go to Yerushalayim? He says in Yerushalayim they already have tzaddikim. They already have Torah over there. I want to go to a place to put more Torah into the world. So you say, oh, but there's a Mishnah here that says you cannot go to a place no Torah. He says, yes, exactly. So we're either going to build Torah here, or we're all going to go to Gehinnom together. That's what the Chazon Ish says when he came, is Aliyat Eretz Yisrael, Shalom Aleichem. Either we succeed, or we're at fault anyway. You can't just go to a place and where there's only Torah. You have to go build places. But the same token, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says, no, you can't go to a place. So there's a stira here, there's a contradiction here. Why did Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma say no? Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma said no because it wasn't about the fact that there was no Torah there. It was the fact that the offer that the person gave him wasn't about Torah. He said, Rebbe, why don't you come and live with us in our place? Meaning, why don't you be like us? Why don't you be like us? We're all businessmen. This guy has a brokerage firm. The other guy's got an insurance company. This guy's got a couple of car lots. Everybody's doing well. Why don't you come with us? Make us look kosher. Why? We need a rabbi to give us a nice kosher stamp. Kosher.com, kosher this, kosher that. We need to look good. So we need you to come with us. And if you're worried about money, why? Because we're all high rollers. We're all living on the 80th floor. Don't worry, Rabbi. I got you. Cash. I'll spot you the first million. I'll spot you the first million so you don't have to act like weird. You get your new house. You act as if you belong. So Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says this is not an offer. This is not even a bribe. This is you trying to buy my Olam Haba and give it to the Satan himself. This I won't do for all the money in the world. Why? Why is Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma so adamant about it? Why doesn't he think that he could change them? Because a person that does not see an obligation in himself, a person that does not see any deficiency in himself, you can't change them. You can't change them. If you go to a person, you tell him, listen, you should come to a shiur. Nah, I already know the whole Torah. You know the whole Torah, how come you don't keep anything though? Nah, I keep my own way, buddy. I keep my own way. I keep more than you. Yeah, I saw you drive in front of me on Shabbat. Don't worry about it. I saw you eating at the McDonald's. Yeah, but pikuach nefesh. I was hungry. It was pikuach nefesh. It was lifeless. If I don't eat, I was going to die. He has all types of halachot he made for himself. It's a very dangerous person. You can't help a person like this. Sometimes a person knows a lot of Torah. But the Ramban in Parashat Bo calls them Naval Birshut Torah. Despicable in the name of the Torah. Despicable in the name of the Torah. Sometimes he keeps a lot of Torah. But the Ramban says he's still going to go to Gehinnom. Why? But he keeps everything. Yes, he keeps everything. You're never going to catch him cheating on anything. But he does the minimum of minimum when he could do more on certain things. When he's expected to do more on certain things because he knows. Because he knows he's expected to do more. Some people are expected to be minimum of minimum. Alvai be minimum of minimum. Other people are expected to be a lot more. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave each one of us an neshama, and we all know how much we're capable of doing. At least today. You do more, Hashem is going to give you insight to realize that you could do even more. And that's one of the biggest gifts that we have in this world, that Hashem uncovers our eyes when we're ready to see what was already there the whole time. Now, the Bet HaLevi, Rav Soloveitchik, Rav Dov Soloveitchik, says something very interesting. He says that the Torah tells us, the Kabbalah tells us, that there are several dimensions to the world. several dimensions. We're not going to go into Kabbalah right now, but in so many words, you have a neshama here, you have a neshama up there. Your neshama does something over here, it does something over there in Shamayim. You have a deficiency here, you have a deficiency there. Before there's a war in this world, there's a war up there first. You understand? Okay. Now, the physicality of this world is not like the physicality of that world. For example, fire. The Gemara says in Masechet Brachot that the fire here in this world, the highest level of fire, imagine, let's say, a volcano. Volcano. The highest level of fire is only 1/60th of the fire in heaven. 1/60th, meaning in Gehenom over there's a nice pool of fire. The fire here is only 1/60th, meaning it's not 60 times more powerful. It's an infinite amount more times powerful. But the fire here burns everybody alike. Whether they're righteous or they're wicked, they keep Shabbat, they don't keep Shabbat, you put your hand into a fire, you put your hand into a stove, guess what? In a few minutes, you're probably not going to have a hand. In heaven, though, it doesn't burn anyone. Why? Because the fire there is different. How so? It acts different than the fire here. Why? Because over there are rules where the fire is a fire. It's much more powerful fire. But the tzaddikim, the Gemara in Masechet Chagiga, the end of Masechet Chagiga says, what? Tzaddikim, kulam esh. The tzaddikim are fire. The righteous are fire. Meaning that fire cannot burn them. Fire cannot burn the tzaddik. Doesn't matter what kind of level of fire. Where do we see this in the Torah? Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was thrown into Kivshana Ish, hole full of fire. The people that threw him, people that wanted to throw him in there, they got burned. They didn't go into the hole, but the fire was so strong, they got burned just by being close to it. That's how strong the fire was. Avraham Avinu was walking around, nothing touched him, not even a little scar, nothing. Why? To us, it's a miracle. To us, it's not even a miracle. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, wait a minute, he is a tzaddik. A tzaddik cannot be treated the same way as everybody else. So now this fire has to act like the fire in heaven. It has to act the same way. Where? Can't touch him. Why? Because he's fire. He's fire. That fire cannot burn him. So far, so good. Now, each one of us has the opportunity to get to such a high level of Kedusha. Woman, man, everybody has an opportunity to be that way. The problem that we have is that we're constantly looking around and competing against the people around us or comparing ourselves to the people around us. And many times we fail because of it. Because we see that she's not modest and she comes from a good family, so that makes it okay not to be modest. We see that he goes out and he's not really shomer nagia and he's comes from a good family, his father's a rabbi, so that means it's okay to do this. We justify our behavior by looking at other people. Sometimes looking at those people are rabbis. I can tell you an example that happened just in the last few days. I have a student, Baruch Hashem, Ba'alat Tshuva for the last few years. She sends me an email. She says, Rabbi, I know that Baruch Hashem, modest, everything is good for the last few years, but the reality is there are still pictures of me on the internet. Still pictures of me on the internet. Of the days that I wasn't modest. On my friend's profile on Facebook and all these other places. What should I do? Should I ask them to delete it? Or should I just ignore it? I said, of course, ask it. First of all, you have to tell them to delete it. You have to tell them to delete it. Why? Because if somebody looks at the picture, even though today you're tzaddikah, you're sarah imenu, it doesn't make a difference. There's a picture of you from 20 years ago. You're not modest. There's a serious problem here. You have to remove it. If it's just a picture of your face, then it's a different story. But if it's a picture you're almost not wearing clothes, yeah, it's a very serious problem. Even though you did tshuva. So ask him to remove it and ask him nicely. Tell him it's a present. Give me a present for my wedding. Give me a present for my birthday. Give me a present for whatever. Please do me a favor. Don't buy me anything. What are you going to do? Just take off my picture from your profile. That's it. Why? Because if somebody looks at it, it's a very serious problem. So I agree. Thank you, Rabbi. I just want to know. I had the feeling, Baruch Hashem, I'm going to do it. Next day, she sends me an email. It says, at the same time I asked you, I also asked the local Rabbanit. The local Rabbanit, and she sent me the answer of the Rabbanit. What did the Rabbanit say? Rabbanit says, nah, you don't have to worry about them taking off your picture. In fact, you tell them to take off the pictures is going to bring attention to those pictures. You tell them to take off the picture is going to bring attention to those pictures. You have nothing to worry about your past. All you have to worry about is just today, and hopefully you stay strong, and that's it. I said, with a Rabbanit like that, who needs a Yetzer? Yetzer goes on vacation. Rabbanit like this, who needs a Yetzer b'chlal? Rabbanit Yetzer says, I'm on vacation, I'm in Poconos. I'm in Cancun. Why? Rabbanit's working for me. She's doing all the jobs for me. She's telling people not to do tshuva. Now, anyone that thinks logically, not even just Torah, just logically, says, this makes no sense whatsoever. This has to be the Satan. Why? What do you mean? You're asking somebody, remove the pictures, remove the immodesty of my past. How is that going to bring attention to it? You're deleting it. It's the opposite. You're removing the attention. You're asking them privately. You're not making a billboard on I-95. Please, if you have a picture of me looking like this, like this, like this, and like this, remove it. You're not doing that. What are you doing? Saying, honey, I love you. How are you? How's your family? How's your kids? Do me a favor. You know you have like 6 pictures of me on your profile. Do me a favor. Love, do me a favor. Can you take it off, please? How's that taking off? How's that bringing attention to it? If anything, it's a chidush Hashem. Why? The girl's going to ask you, why? What happened? What's wrong with the problems? No, you know I did tshuva. It's not good. It's not modest. You have an opportunity to do a shiur Torah with your friend. What's the worst that's going to happen? She's going to do tshuva. For the Rabbanit doesn't want her to do tshuva. Why? Chas v'shalom, she does tshuva. Yetzer is going to fire her. So sometimes you get the worst advice from people that are supposed to give you the advice. And that's why, Rabotai, don't assume that just because someone is a rabbi or a rebbitzin, their advice is what Torah says. You have to double check. What does the Torah say? Is what you said your opinion, or is it what the Torah said? If it's what Torah says, that means the Kadosh Baruch Hu said it. It has to be right. If it's your opinion, I'm sorry. 50-50. It's like somebody went to a restaurant one time, and he asked the guy, he's like, this place kosher? He says, what place kosher? Look at the pictures I have on the wall. Baba Sali, Rav Ovadia, the Ben Ish Chai, the Stipler Gaon, Rav Kanievsky, Rav this. Look at all these pictures. Look, what do you think this place is? He says, listen, if the Baba Sali and Rav Kanievsky and Rav Ovadia, they were here, and you were in a picture, I'd know this place is kosher. But since they're in the picture and you're here, I'm not sure if it's kosher. Can you show me a certificate? Show me a certificate. It's kosher. You have to double check, Rabotai. You have to double check. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma tells us you have to double check. You can't just assume that because a place looks kosher, acts kosher, and if you have a rabbi that's constantly in bed with the Christians and the Catholics and the atheists and the all of the people that are against Hashem, it's impossible for such a place to be kosher. It's impossible for a big rabbi to tell you you're allowed to live there. So, The big problem that we have is that we don't think there's a problem. Why? Because we see that even within every bad community, there's a few decent people. So you figure this decent person, this tzaddik, he lives here, so it must be okay. It must be okay. The rest of the people, not so much, but they're nice people. And we do all types of accounting. This type of accounting is what killed almost all of Am Yisrael in Mitzrayim. The Arav Yeshayahu Horowitz, the Shnei Luchot HaBrit, in Psachim section Torah or number 24. He says something extraordinary. He says that the Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus, was not a miracle because of the 10 plagues, not a miracle because of us leaving Egypt, not a miracle because we got to Mount Sinai. No, that's not the miracle. The miracle is that Am Yisrael got to such a low level of Kedusha, 49th level of Tumah, 49th level of impurity, that they themselves could not visualize themselves as anything but slaves. They couldn't picture themselves as free people. They couldn't picture themselves as someone, anything but a tool for the Egyptians. Not just here, but to such an extent of the other dimension. Meaning in both places, in this world and the world over there, in both dimensions, their neshama was convinced they will never be anything but a slave. So when Moshe Rabbeinu came to them, he says, let's go. Chop, chop. We're out of here. We're out of here, Moshe. We got work to do. No, Hashem, pakod yifkod, he gave me the code, everything. Moshe, we got work to do. If not, they're going to put our babies in the blocks instead. If not, they're going to throw them in the water. If not, they're going to kill us. If not this, if not that. Moshe, please, we're busy. Chalas. Go do something else. When Moshe Rabbeinu came to Am Yisrael, they thought it's impossible. Impossible for us to leave. Now, after seeing the 10 plagues, you would think that all of them got the point. All of them saw miracles. They saw Hashem change nature. They saw Hashem turn the water into blood, bring one frog that after you hit it turns into millions of frogs. And after you hit those millions of frogs, turns into more millions of frogs. That's why the first time the frog plague is mentioned, it says tzfardea, which is singular. But then after that it says tzfardeim. As the Midrash and Me'am Loya says, first came one frog, one really big frog. Then the Egyptians tried to hit the frog, kill it. Every time they hit it, millions of frogs came out. So they tried to hit the frog again, and more millions of frogs. They got so frustrated, the Egyptians got so frustrated that it's getting worse, they lost their mental capacity, they just continued hitting it. Like knowing it's mimash, like it's like almost like drinking more poison, like a cure. Knowing it's poison though. They continue, sometimes that's what we do. We're laughing at the Egyptians, but sometimes it's us. Sometimes we get so angry we want to break something, like as if it's going to fix something. Wait, what happened? Why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? I just lost a bunch of money. Pah! Okay, but you lost money. Why are you breaking more stuff, Habibi? You lost money. You're complaining that you lost $500. You're breaking now something that just cost you $1,000. The heck with it. Pah! Another $2,000. By the end of the day, you broke $5,000. You could have just been quiet. Only lost $500. The Egyptians, same way. The Egyptians, same way, they continued hitting the frog. Am Yisrael saw this. The frogs only hit the Egyptians, never the Jews. Not enough. Lice, the size of chicken eggs, the Midrash says. Chicken eggs. Not enough. it gets to a point where there's hail coming down from Shamayim. Inside the hail, the ice, there's lava, which is against nature. It's against nature. Only hits the Egyptians. You figure by now, everybody is Baba Sali. Everybody is perfect. Everybody is Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't need to be Moshe Rabbeinu anymore. He's going on vacation. You have all the miracles in the world. That's it. Finished. When the plague of darkness comes, we learn that Hashem killed who? Who did he kill during it? Who did Hashem kill? Egyptians? Killed a bunch of Egyptians, right? But the reality is that he killed a bunch of Jews too. How many Jews? The best case scenario is 80%. The best case scenario. Worst case scenario, 99%. Midrash Me'am Loy says. Only 2 people out of every million left Egypt, according to one Midrash. 2 people out of every million. The best case scenario is 1 person out of every 5. 200,000 out of every million. That's the best case scenario. But some say you're dreaming. It's not 200,000 out of every million. It's not even 20,000 out of every million. Why? Why? You just saw a bunch of miracles. Why don't you want to leave? Because despite the miracles, miracles do not make people do tshuva. Miracles do not make people do tshuva. Sometimes you see people, miracle after miracle. The guy had cancer, they told him he has 3 weeks to live. 30 years later, he's still running. Doesn't do tshuva. You see this person went into a car accident, Hashem Yachem, the car itself, it disappeared from the world. Him, he's walking around like nothing happened. Miracles, you see it. Nothing. Doesn't change a thing. Miracles don't make people do tshuva. Only realizing that you can do better. You can do better, and you're serving of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you have to do better. And you're serving of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Makes people do tshuva. That's the only way. As long as you think you're okay, like the Gemara in Maseret Ketubot and also in Shabbat says, "En adam roe chova be'atzmo." A person does not see obligation in himself. As long as you think there's nothing wrong with you, no miracle in the world is going to help you. We saw it in Egypt. All the miracles in the world happened there. But they still never saw themselves as being anything but slaves. They still never saw themselves as being anything but secular Jews. They still never saw themselves as anything but whatever they are right now. They were born into a Chabad family, they're staying Chabad family. They were born into a secular family. Atheist family, atheist. Whatever I came in the world to a cow, I'm going to stay a cow. No development whatsoever. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you're treating yourself like this, you're not the Jew that you're supposed to be. You're not the neshama that you're supposed to be. You've lost your right to live. So here we see, Rabotai Karim, that when people did not have bitachon in themselves, confidence in themselves that they can do better, they simply didn't. Now sometimes this bitachon comes from an inspirational story you heard that says, you know what, I can do that. What, this 22-year-old just finished the Shas 4th time? Okay, maybe I can't finish it 4 times because I'm already 30 and I haven't finished it once, but I can do once. I'll do Daf Yomi, I'll finish it in 7 years. I'll do 2 Dafs, I'll finish it in 3 years. I'll do 3 Dafs, I'll finish it in a year. I can do it. Why? He's human, I'm human. He puts his pants on 1 leg at a time, I'm putting 1 leg at a time. What? Sarah Imenu is beautiful, but modest? I can be beautiful and modest. I can be beautiful. What? Modesty does not mean ugly. It means preserving your wealth and only showing it to one particular person. That's it. That's what modesty means. Immodesty means you're sharing your beauty with everybody else, and usually not with the one person you're supposed to. So, more times than not, a person needs to be inspired to do better. And that's why it's very common today that people try to give inspirational speeches. They'll give you a nice story, they'll give you some chizuk, some story of some person that was homeless and now is rich, some person that didn't know anything, he was a divorce with a kid and became Rabbi Akiva. They'll give you inspirational stories like this. Sadly, this doesn't last. Doesn't last. May last a week, a month, a year, 5 years. It'll last as long as the Yetzer allows it to last. Not you. As long as the Yetzer allows it to last. Why? Because this inspiration is just your desire to do better. But the minute the big test comes, whatever your weakness is, if your weakness is money, opportunity for you to steal $7 million. Somebody comes up to you and says, listen, son, how old do you know? 35 years old, 40 years old, 45 years old. How much you have in the bank? $7. How many kids you have? 7. Your wife, she likes you? Well, not so much. Why? Because I have all the things I just told you. When's the next time you get a raise? Never. How are you going to retire? I'm not even thinking of retirement. I'm thinking I'm better off just committing suicide. It's cheaper. Okay, son, how about this? I'll give you an opportunity. I'll write you a check for $7 million. All you got to do is XYZ that's illegal. All you got to do is tell all of these customers that you're such and such, and in reality everything you're saying is a lie. All you got to do is lie. All you got to do is cheat. All you got to do is just something illegal. But it's $7 million, Habibi. After you get the $7 million, you get away with it once, you don't have to do it ever again. You don't have to do it ever again. You retire. Then you can retire. How many people are going to pass that test? How many people are going to pass that test? Very few. Very few. Why? You have to have an inner midat ayemit. An inner midat ayemit, an inner instinct for being honest as a result of fear of dishonesty. As a result of hatred of dishonesty. How much hatred of dishonesty? Unfortunately today, Rabotai, the average business, and I've done business with thousands of people, the average business is 100% stealing. Why? They say they're going to do something, but they don't. That's stealing. Just an illegal way. They say they're going to give you an ad. Give us $950. You give them the $950, and they don't. Yeah, okay, what about my ad? Yeah, next time. Next time, buddy. Yeah, but I paid for this time. Yeah, okay, we'll do it next when we get a chance. 6 months later, did you get a chance yet? I paid the $950 6 months ago. How about my just give me my money back. Don't give me the ad. Give me the money back. No, we spent it. We spent it. Oh, my fridge is having some problems. Can you come look at it? Maybe I need to fix something. Guy comes. This happened in my house 2 months ago. Guy comes. He's got, I don't know, a couple of bags with him. Italian guy comes. He looks at the fridge. I'd say I'm estimating somewhere between 45, maybe tops 50 seconds. Tops 50 seconds. He's like, the unit's gone. I think it's gone. It's garbage. What garbage? There's thousands of dollars in this fridge. Landlord spent, I don't know, so much money on this fridge. Wait, I'm going to tell him they have to buy a $5,000 fridge right now. Are you crazy? What do you mean? He goes, look, you see this? And he shows me some piece of plastic. Go, you see this? I say, yeah. Because that's crap. He goes, yeah, that's it. It's gone. It's garbage. You have to replace the whole thing. So You can't fix that piece of plastic, put some tape on it, put some crazy glue. I don't know, do something. He goes, it's going to cost so much money. It's going to cost so much money to fix this. It's not worth it. I'll call the landlord for you. He called the landlord, talking to them. I said, as soon as he finished, he let him leave. I called the landlord. I said, listen, don't listen to this person. He's a thief. He's a thief. He tells you to replace, he goes, yeah, maybe I have to replace it. I said, no, do not replace it. I'd rather not have a fridge than somebody stealing from you. Why? It's highway robbery. Find a normal person. Yeah, but he's a professional. Let him be professional. Let him be Pikachu for all I care. No chance in the world that he's honest. Baruch Hashem, she listened. She sent somebody else. Nice Russian boy. Came to the house. He goes, it's just missing a little fuse thingy. He fixes it maybe tops 20 minutes. 20 minutes took him. I think it cost like $75. I told him, what about that crack? That crack over here. He goes, oh yeah, that's just plastic. That's just plastic. I'm like, yeah, but it's the unit. He goes, you know how much plastic is in this unit? He looks at me like I have 5 eyes. He goes, it's just plastic. It's just broke. Everything breaks. It's plastic. It's nothing. It's just a shell. Doesn't mean anything. Thieves, one after another. I can tell you stories from here to next year. I'm telling you, I have not met an honest business person in my life. And I've dealt with many of them. Sometimes they're honest in the beginning to get more business. But it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before they cheat. It's only a matter of time. Why? Cheating, lying has become standard in the thought process of mankind, Jew or non-Jew alike, unfortunately, as a way to get ahead, as a requirement to get ahead. You have to cheat, you have to lie, you have to do everything possible to kill or be killed mentality. Ruthless behavior, as if you're the lion and everyone else is the gazelle. Competition opened up next door to you, guess what? You're going to let them operate for a little bit. You're going to let them do it because you can't stop it right away. But then you're going to call the government. Yeah, listen, IRS, yeah, I think this guy's cooking the books. I think he's not paying taxes. I think he's also illegal in this country. I think, you're thinking a lot of things. Why? It's competition. Yeah, but you don't know anything. None of this stuff is true. Yeah, but it's competition. I got to kill my competition. If it's not through honest business, hey, kill or be killed. People feel perfectly fine doing this. What do you think? All of these people that go to jail because of something dishonest they just get caught out of nothing? No, it's their competition that called the feds. Sometimes the competition is their brother, their sister, their father, their mother. It's standard behavior to think like this. Standard behavior to think that you're supposed to kill anyone in your way. Bernie Madoff, one of the biggest chilulei Hashem that happened in probably the last 100 years for Am Yisrael, who do you think were his victims? Predominantly Jewish people. Predominantly Jewish people, not only Jewish people, his neighbors, his best friends, his community. That's who he stole $50 billion from. Now, this took 30 years. At some point, did you just say, you know what? I already stole $1 billion. It's enough. It's enough. Let me just go to Africa somewhere in the woods, build myself some villa underground. No one's ever going to find me. And let these poor people deal with but it's $1 billion. Chalas, $1 billion is more than enough. What do you need 50, 60 billion for? Because the Gemara says that a person that does not have yirat shamayim, does not have fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he has a mentality where you give him 100, he wants 2. You give him 200, he wants 4. You give him 800, he wants 1,600. He has a mentality that nothing is ever enough. Nothing is ever going to be enough. Nothing. And that type of mentality is obligated to steal. Obligated to have a mentality of kill or be killed. Because it's the only way to attain such wealth. It's the only way to attain such a goal. But the best thing is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, There's no such person that lives like this and even reaches half of what they wanted. Why? Because no matter what they had, they always want double, but they're not even going to reach the half eventually. So this motivation that you're going to get from somebody that's going to inspire you to be better, unfortunately, it will not last very long. Because eventually the Yetzer is going to come to you with a $7 million test. Eventually the Yetzer is going to come to you with a beautiful woman that's not your wife. Eventually the Yetzer is going to come to you with an opportunity of a lifetime to destroy a lifetime. But you're not going to think about it that way. You're going to think, I'm going to cheat once, lie once, do this once, and then I'm going to go back to be kosher, I'll do chuva. But there's a rule in the Torah. A person that says, I'm going to sin and then do tshuva. I'm going to sin and then do tshuva. האומר אחטא ואשוב, אחטא ואשוב, אין מספיקים בידו לעשות tshuva. A person that says, I'm going to sin and then do tshuva. What's the punishment? Hashem says, you will never do tshuva. Why? I will not allow it. That's the punishment. Why? Because you're making a joke. You're making a joke of the system. You're making a joke of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Which leads us to the next point. What's going to keep the motivation going? The only thing that keeps the motivation going is knowledge of what you're supposed to be scared of. Fear. Why you're supposed to be afraid. That's enough knowledge to inspire you for a lifetime. They asked the Rabbi Ovadia one time, when should you teach children about Gehenom? He said at 6 years old. 6 years old. Why at 6 years old? So if you teach them at 6 years old about Gehenom, you won't have to teach them about it at 36. If you don't teach them at 6 years old, even if you teach them at 36, there's no guarantee that they're going to actually follow it. Now to make it as clear as day for people of the tzaddikim doing what they say, Rabbi Ovadia, alav shalom, he wrote commentary. I believe it was at the age of 9 or 11. About what? The entire book of Reshit Chochmah. Masechet Gehenom. The whole thing he wrote it, but that's the one that we learn most amount of information we know about Gehenom is from Reshit Chochmah. He wrote commentary on the entire book, which includes Masechet Gehenom, at 9 or 11 years old. That is a book that is scholarly book. You could buy it, you could think of it. I mean, this is something like Talmidei Chachamim learned from this. So, here we see that one of the Gedolei Ador that loved all of Am Yisrael is telling you it's a requirement to be afraid. Now the prophet Ezekiel, in the beginning of his prophecies in chapter 3, says something very interesting. He says, son of man, Ben Adam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, talks to him like this. He calls him throughout the whole book, he calls him Ben Adam. Son of man, I've appointed you a sentinel for the house of Israel. When you hear a matter from my mouth, you shall warn them on my behalf. When I say of the wicked one, you shall surely die, and you do not warn him, and you do not speak up and warn the wicked of his evil way to save his life, then he, the wicked one, will die for his iniquity, and I will demand his blood from your hands. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to the prophet Ezekiel is Gdol Ador, giant of giants. He says, by the way, there's a Rasha in your town. There's a few Rashaim. There's a few people that are wicked. If I tell you this person is wicked, and you don't go tell them, I'm going to kill them, but I'm also going to demand their blood on you. Meaning, I'm going to punish you also. The next verse says, and when a righteous person turns from his righteousness and acts corruptly, and I place a stumbling block before him, he will die. Because you did not warn him, he will die for his sin, and his righteousness that he did will not be remembered. And I will demand his blood from your hand. He says, yeah, but sometimes they're not Reshayim, they're not wicked people, they're not driving on Shabbat, they're not operating prostitute house or something like that. Sometimes they're righteous people. Sometimes they're decent people. They have, the shtreimel, the hat, the whole thing. They're religious. She's religious. Everything is good. But I'll send them a stumbling block. I'll send them a test. And they'll fail miserably at that test. If you don't go and rebuke them and tell them, you have to do tshuva. Yeah, but she's religious. Yes, she's religious, but she also messes up. Yes, he's religious, but he also messes up. Why? Because they're still in this world. If they're still in this world, they have to do tshuva. A person that does not have to do tshuva does not live in this world anymore. So if you don't rebuke the religious people, he says, I'll demand their blood from you also. Here we say that a Kadosh Baruch Hu tells us it's not just the irreligious people, secular people, that need to do tshuva, that need to be rebuked. It's the religious ones too. Hashem treats them both separate paragraphs, same exact message. In order to teach us, don't think there's a difference here. There's no thing there's a different set of instructions. Both need to do tshuva. Now, the Likutei Maharan, Chelek Aleph, Perek Nun Vav, Ot Gimel, says שהרבנות מקרבת את בעליה, אבל אם מוכיח את החוטאים ניצל מזה. מקברת את זה. So he says that the Rabbanut, the rabbis, buries their own keilah. The rabbis bury their own keilah if they don't rebuke. But if they rebuke them, even if they don't do tshuva, they still save themselves. Meaning that if you're going to be a rabbi in a keilah, you should know that whether you rebuke or not carries weight. Not only for them, but for you yourself. When you don't rebuke people, you don't tell people they have to do tshuva, you end up losing also. Because not only are you burying them in their own sin, but also you're going to get punished for it. Now, one of the biggest reasons of why people don't like to do it, to their brothers and their sisters and their cousins and so on, is because they figure, listen, you have to be merciful, you have to do chesed, you have to be kind, you have to be generous, try to bring them in with love. So this week's parasha, Parashat Tazria, tells us the opposite. Now we have three things that every son of Abraham has, every daughter of Abraham have. What is it? Well, kind, generous, shy. If you're not shy, double check. If you're not generous, double check. If you're not kind, double check. Why? These are the requirements to be a Jew. Meaning, if you have a terrible midah, terrible character trait, that you're stingy, you are going against your own instructions. If you are a very arrogant person, you're going against your own instructions. You're operating against your own instructions. But here we see in Parashat Tazria, this week's parasha, where it says, "Ubayom hashmini yemol basar olato." The mitzvah of Brit Milah. Mitzvah of Brit Milah. Now, mitzvah of Brit Milah, you don't really talk about it very often. But in reality, it kind of actually goes against all of those things. Supposed to be, what? Kind? How is it kind to take a piece of flesh out of an 8-year-old baby that can't defend himself? If you ask the baby, hey baby, you want me to cut a piece of you? And the baby was able to speak, cut a piece of you. What do I do to you? You cut your finger, I'll cut something else. You go find somebody else, buddy. That's not kind. Next thing I say, oh wait, no, merciful. Merciful? What's merciful about it? There's blood everywhere. Shem Yerachem. Humility. Modesty. What modesty? It's the most sensitive part, the most private part of a human body. And not only that, you invite people to watch. And it's a sgula to look. Oh, look. What look? My own kids, I didn't want to look. Well, it's scary. But it's a sgula to look. Now, So this kind of goes contrary to what we just said. Not only that, Avraham Avinu is the first one that had to fulfill it. To teach us what? To teach us that these Middot, humility, generosity, the kindness, all of the good has a time and a place. You can't always be kind. You can't always be generous. You can't always be humble. You cannot always, there's a time and a place that you cannot do it. If you're kind to thieves, guess what? You are putting yourself and others in danger. Shaul HaMelech was Kodesh Kodeshim. Gemara says, one of the most modest people that ever lived. He was merciful one time too many. One time with who? With Agag. Agag, the king of Amalek. He was like a little scrawny little nothing. He says, what is this guy going to do? I killed his entire army. What is this little guy going to do? He let him live for one extra day, for a few hours. That was enough time for him to be intimate with one of the people in there, one of the women there, which, a few generations later, brought Haman. That almost destroyed all of Am Yisrael. Meaning there's a time and a place to be kind, there's a time and a place to be humble and so on. But not only that, there's a way to do it. Telling somebody to fix their relationship with a Kadosh Baruch Hu is not unkind. It's the ultimate kindness. It's not lack of humility to rebuke people by telling them the truth. It is actually humility, because you're rebuking yourself at the same time. This is what we have to understand. Now, in order to motivate us to do some of these things, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us different parts of the Torah. The Mishnah here, Yossi ben Chizma says that all the money in the world is not going to hold water, because if there's no Torah, there's nothing. Because at the end of the day, all of us going to the grave, all of us going to a place that doesn't seem like a fun place to be in, and the only thing that carries any weight is if we have mitzvot, if we have Torah. Now, on the level of 1 to 10, well actually forget 1 to 10 because that'll be too complicated. On a level of yes or no, how many of you want to be scared? I know the regulars want to be scared, but the new ones, nobody really wants to be scared here, right? Yeah. Scared? Everyone wants to be scared a little bit? Okay, I'll scare you a little bit. Not the whole thing. If anybody saw my Genom shiur, this is not going to be it. This is part of our Torah that we need to learn. What happens when you go into the grave? Rabbi Yonatan Eibishitz, alav shalom, in Yarot Dvash, Drush Bet, says very simply, if people knew what punishment is in Genom, if they just knew, if they just watched my shiur, Genom, if they just knew that, actually believe what it says, they'd start crying, they'd start yelling, and they'd avoid doing anything for the sake of this world, and work and toil their entire life just to avoid that punishment. Not to get Gan Eden, just to avoid the punishment. If they simply knew what's the other option. Now, Genom is not the beginning of suffering, though. It's very hard for us to relate to a world none of us ever saw. But some of us have seen people die. And the Torah talks about people dying constantly. And the tzaddikim constantly talk about what happens when you die. The worms are going to eat you. All types of really graphic stuff that bothers a lot of people. So we're not going to go into the really graphic things. But you simply need to know just a little bit, just enough, to scare you enough to motivate you. Scare you enough to motivate you to do good things. Not scary to give you nightmares. Scary enough to motivate you so you don't fall for the big test the Yetzer has waiting for you. There are 7 dinim. The Zohar, Parashat Vayekel, page 99, and also Parashat Naso, page 127a, anyone that wants to look there. There are 7 dinim when it comes to the body, and 4 dinim when it comes to the nefesh, meaning there are 7 judgments that come on the body, 7 judgments on the body, 4 judgments on the soul. There's reward and punishment for both. The body doesn't only get rewarded during this world. If the body did good, if the body sanctified itself, it'll be resurrected with the dead, and it'll enjoy 1,000 years of pleasant world of perfection. Why does Hashem need to bring you back to this world when the soul is even better than the body? Because if the body sanctified itself, purified itself by not making forbidden sex acts, by not eating non-kosher, by not doing things that destroy the body, then Hashem has to give the body a reward. That's how He works. He has to give it. There's no such thing as you did something and Hashem not giving you a reward for it. So if you did something good, He has to give you a reward for it. Not just the soul. The soul gets a reward for what it did too. But the body also has to get a reward. Where? Resurrection of the dead. But the Ramak, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, says something extraordinary. He says that both the body and the soul can get punished. If a person made sins, he made sins with the body and the soul. As the Gemara says, an analogy in Masechet Shabbat. One time there was a owner of a field, and he had a very precious field, and he said, listen, I need somebody to guard this field, but I'm scared they're going to steal from me. So what did he do? He hired one guy that was blind, that couldn't see what he's there. He's just going to be security guard, but he doesn't see what he's there, so he's not going to steal what he can't see. And one guy that was a limp, one guy couldn't walk, paraplegic. Why? Because even if he stole, he can't go anywhere. So he's had those 2 people. He left them there. A few months later, he comes back, the whole field destroyed. Hey, what'd you guys do? What happened here? No, nothing. What nothing? The field's gone. Because what gone? I can't see what's even here. The other guy can't walk. If he would have stole something, he would see him. He says, I see what you guys did. He can't walk, but he could see. He can't see, but he can walk. What'd you guys do? You climbed on top of him and you walked around and he was telling you where to go. So that's what exactly we're going to do to you. We're going to put you guys back together, one on top of the other, and I'll beat you both up together. This, Rabotai, is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says when they ask him, Hashem, listen, I'm the soul. I didn't sin. It was the body that took me to the club. It was the body that was eating non-kosher. I didn't want to eat non-kosher. And then the body says, listen, Hashem, do I function when the soul leaves? Look, as soon as the soul left me in the grave, I stopped sinning. So it's not my fault. Both of them are complaining to Hashem. He says, no, Hashem says, no, I'm going to put you back together, and I'm going to punish both of you together. And that's why, when a person is in the grave, first thing that happens after they put all the sand and everybody goes away, Duma shows up. Certain angels named Duma show up, deepen the grave to the same height of the person, stand them up, and Hashem puts back the neshama inside the body just like when he was alive. And the Ramak says that it is possible for both the body and the soul to be punished. But it's also possible for both of them to get rewarded. If they both sanctified Hashem's name their whole life, he didn't make all those sins, he didn't do bad things, soul gets rewarded, the body gets rewarded. But he says there is one other option. What's the other option? That the soul gets rewarded, but the body does not. The soul gets rewarded, but the body does not get rewarded. Why doesn't the body get rewarded? Because the body itself did not sanctify itself to its full potential. So it's not owed any reward. But the soul did. The soul is in Gan Eden. But the body is not going to be resurrected with the dead. That's a possibility. But as far as sinning, as far as punishment, it's always both. It's always both. So, there are 7 judgments that go on the body, 4 judgments on the nefesh. The judgments on the nefesh we're not going to talk about, but just briefly so you know. One is after everything is done at in the grave, the soul goes on the way to Gehinom. One of the punishments is the way to Gehinom. It's like, for example, somebody that goes to jail. A big part of the suffering is going through the whole cells from one door to the other door to the other door, and he sees all the people yelling at him and screaming at him. It's a nightmare because this is his new house for the next 15 years. The second punishment for the soul is the Gehinom itself. Third punishment is kafakela, and fourth punishment is tohu. Those are the 4 things on the soul. The body, on the other hand, has different suffering, different judgments on it. The first thing is type of death. What type of death is the person going to have? It can either be an easy death or a difficult death. Some people, they go to sleep, they die. That's considered an easy death. Some people, Hashem Yachem, they suffer with cancer or some type of disease for 5 years before Hashem kills them anyway. That's a very difficult death, or some type of strange death. Get hit by a truck, tree, something happens. Their body deformed. The Gemara in Masechet Brachot, page 8a, says that there are 903 types of deaths in this world. The second level is the journey before the death, before the burial. How many people are going to come to their funeral? Who's going to come? Who's going to carry them? That's also a judgment. Person was righteous, could have a million people show up, like Rabbi Ovadia. The biggest funeral in history since Moshe Rabbeinu was the funeral, Levaya of Rabbi Ovadia, alav hashalom. 1 million people showed up. 1 million people. In a country of 12, 13 million, of only 8 million Jews, meaning 12.5% of the Jewish people in the country went to this funeral. It's unbelievable. I mean, if that was in America, you're talking about 50 million people showing up to a funeral. An entire state is not even enough for them to show up, statistically speaking. So if a person is righteous, has a positive judgment. Person that's not necessarily. Who shows up? If all the people that show up to his funeral, all Reshaim. So even if they say Kaddish, it doesn't help him. All the women are coming to his funeral, they're all half naked. Shem Yachem, he has more sins on him. Why? It's not helping him, this funeral. Third, depository into the grave. Being deposited into the grave. Because the grave is the gate that leaves this world and enters the next one. The Zohar in Parashat Vayekel, page 199b, says that after the body is thrown into the grave, the first chapter, meaning the first 3 steps of judgments on the body, are completed. Where do they source all of this stuff from? Where do they just decide that they're going to write this stuff down because it makes sense? All of it, believe it or not, comes, one of the main sources is the book of Yonah. The book of Yonah is one of the main sources of what happens in the grave. The whole story of what happened to Yonah is also through the Kodesh, is what happens to the body. Just like they threw Yonah into the ocean, they throw the body into the ocean, into the grave. And just like the fish swallowed Yonah, the grave swallows the body. Torah Tasod, we see that our Torah is endless. Now, after this, 3 steps, these are the easy ones. Now is when the hard part starts. As soon as a person is in the grave, Hashem Yachem, all of the sins that he ever made start torturing him. First and foremost, everybody that's there, all the other neshamot that are in the grave, start yelling at him, start screaming at him. Oh, you Rasha, you terrible person, who needs this Rasha in this grave? We hate you, we this, we that. Yeah, but they're also Rashaim. Why? Says you're going to bring judgment on us. But you're already dead. What judgment? Says that if they're Rashaim and he's Rasha, part of the reason why he's Rasha is because they were Rashaim. What? So now what happens? Now he died a Rasha, they get judged again for that. Because they were wicked, the next generation were wicked, they get punished again for being wicked. Because they're the reason he was wicked. So they hate him because now he's bringing more suffering on them. As it says, Oy la rasha, oy l'shcheno. Woe to the wicked, woe to their neighbor. He learned from their wickedness and therefore they're going to be judged again. Now after that, step number 4 is called chibut kever, which is in essence suffering inside the grave. We're not going to go into the details of suffering into the grave right now because I think it's enough for you guys. But I can tell you that there's 2 simple things that you should know. There are only 2 options here. The toleah and the rima. Toleah means worms. Rima means maggots. Maggots come from within the body. Worms come from out of the body. We have a friend that works in a graveyard, and he says that the worms that you see outside, sometimes when it rains, come out of the ground. You know, sometimes it rains. In Boca, when I moved to Boca, it rained almost every day. I thought it was the Mabul. There was constantly worms everywhere. You see those worms, sometimes they're really, really long and stuff. That's not it. You ever see a snake? That's almost it. Some of these worms that are meat-eating worms, they're huge. They're massive. You could mistake them for a snake sometimes. That's how big they are. They're huge. And the maggots are what a person comes out. And it's constantly mentioned throughout all of our Torah. What's going to happen to you? You came from nothing and you're going to be eaten by maggots. Why? Why is it constantly mentioned in the Torah you're going to be eaten by maggots? Because any person that actually thinks about this for a few minutes, even for 30 seconds, immediately loses any reason they have to be arrogant. What? You're pretty? Eventually the maggot's going to eat you. You're rich? Eventually the maggot's going to eat you. You're what? What? Eventually you're all going to be the same. We're all going to be the same. So what are you so proud about? If a person realizes this, it's what it says in the Gemara Masechet Shabbat, page 152, Brachot, page 18, it's very easy to lose that delusion, that you have a reason to be proud, that you have a reason to sin, you have a reason to go against Hashem. Now, after a person is there, as I said, the angel Duma comes in. They deepen the grave, as it says, Be'emek HaBacha, when you say it on right before Shabbat, you sing a song. There's something that's being deepened. There's a deepening of Gehenom. There's a deepening of the grave. There's deepening of different things. There's different reasons for it. But the point is that the grave itself is deepened. Why? Because now the neshama and the body have to be punished at the same time. First punishment after all of this is that they get to meet the Malach HaMavet. Malach HaMavet comes to them and tells them, hello, are you such and such? What's your name? Actually, he says, what's your name? Ma shimcha? And the body and the soul says, you know, and it's well known that no one knows their name. No one knows their name. So you figure that, man, I'm going to have a nice conversation with the Malach HaMavet, right? And I don't know my name. I just went through turmoil. Got hit by a car. Got hit by a truck. Just fell from a plane. I don't know my name. It's confused, the guy, poor guy. Right? Pah! Is the first pah. What do you mean you don't know your name? And he starts hitting them until he remembers his name. Pasuk. The pasuk is one of the sgulot to remember the name. But this has to happen.
Which pasuk?
Pasuk that starts with, you have to have a pasuk that starts with the first letter of your name and ends with the last letter of your name. Now, as far as the Yetzer, the Satan, he comes there and he hits you, and the Arizal says, I don't understand. Satan, Malach HaMavet, knows he doesn't know the name. Why? The 50 billion other people that died before him didn't know their name. Only few knew their name. He knows they're not going to know the name. So why does he ask? You know they're not going to know the name. And if you want to hit them, just hit them. What do you have to ask them the name for? You want to hit them, hit them. That's what you have to do. Part of the reason why he hits them, by the way, that's required is because the sins that a person made created a klipa, what's called a klipa. There are two klipot. There are two, in essence, shells on top of the soul. One of the shells is a very thin shell that's a result of the first sin that was ever made by Adam HaRishon. Everybody has it with the exception of very few people in history that weren't part of that sin, which is a teaching of its own. Everybody else has the second klipa. Why? We've all made sins. The more sins a person made, the thicker the klipa is. The thicker the klipa is, the more time a person needs to get hit. Why? It has to break and separate from the soul. Now, a person gets there, and Arizal says, he knows I don't know my name. He needs to hit me anyway. Why does he even bother just delaying the whole thing? Just hit me already. No? So the Chesed LaAvraham, Rabbi Avraham Azulai, in Mayan, Nal Bet, says that the reason why the Malach HaMavet asks the person their name is because while he's asking the name, he has like a folder of some kind, or a file that has the person's name on it. Are you this Steve? Are you Steve? Why? He wants you to admit it's you. Why? Because this folder has all of the sins in it. Before I hit you, I need you to admit this is you. So you know you're not getting hit for no reason. This is Olam Haba. This is the place of honesty here. We're not going to hit for no reason. There's no punishment for no reason. There's a reason for it. And that's why he gets hit. Last but not least, on this part, and then we'll move on to the last part of the shiur, which is not scary, is that the Otzar HaMidrashim says, Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes says in the name of Rabbi Elazar, one thing that if all of us thought about it once a year even, it'd be simply enough to do tshuva. He says the day of death, the grave, is much harder than Gehinnom. Why? Gehinnom, the judgment for Gehinnom is for 20-year-old and over. The suffering of the grave is everybody. The tzaddikim, the reshaim, the baby, the miscarriages. Everybody gets judged. Everybody suffers in the grave. Different levels, obviously. Unless you're one of the 10 tzaddikim that go to Olam Haba without dying, but that's a different story. If you're one of those, give the shiur, please, next week. So, meaning that, Rabotai, all of us are going to be, at some point, exit this world. All of us. The question is, how are we going to exit this world? Are we going to exit this world with expectations of good, where we have a good place to go to, Okay, there's going to be a little suffering, but is it going to be like a little suffering, or is it going to be a lot of suffering? That depends on what you do here. That depends on when the Yetzer shows up and asks you, what do you think of this miniskirt? What do you think of this tank top? What do you think of this church? What do you think of stealing money here? What do you think of all the stuff that Hashem said no to? What do you think? You want to go for it one time only? My mom told me a story one time that puts things in perspective. He said, the rich person once had somebody knock on their door and ask him, can I buy your house? He said, I'm sorry, it's not for sale. Okay, but I like your house. You can like it all you want. It's not for sale. But I really like it. But I understand you like it. I built this house. It cost me $10 million to buy this house and to build it and revive and all the things. I'm not selling it. Okay, fine. Can I just buy enough space in your house to put one nail? One nail. No, leave me alone. Do me a favor. I have the house. I'll pay you $10,000 for it. $10,000 for one nail. The guy has money, which means he likes money. You can't have money, you don't like money, you like money. So he says $10,000 to put a nail in the I put a nail for free. Okay, fool. Come, wherever you want, put the nail. Put the nail. Just make sure the check is made payable to cash. So the guy comes in, he puts the nail in the entrance over there. He finds a nice clean place on the wall. He's excited about. It's like, that's my nail. He goes, that's your nail, buddy. You go, you got it. The guy leaves. He goes, honey, I'm a genius. She goes, why? I just made $10,000 for a nail. She goes, honey, you really are a genius. He's happy. He's ready. He goes to sleep thinking, I'm going to sell nails to the whole community. The whole house is going to be full of nails. I'll buy a $100 million house next month. Until 2 o'clock in the morning. At 2 o'clock in the morning, hello? What? Huh? Runs to the door with his robe. Poor guy. What's going on? Who died? Who this? What happened at 2 o'clock in the morning? He goes, what do you want? Well, he sees the guy with the nail. He goes, what do you want? I have no more nails. I'm going to sleep. What's wrong with you? He goes, no. I have a hat. I want to put it on my nail. He goes, excuse me? He goes, my hat. I finished using it for today. I want to put the hat on my nail. You couldn't come earlier? I didn't finish with the hat till now. If I would have finished earlier, I would have put it earlier, but I needed the hat until now. Can I put my hat on my nail? So the guy is still excited about the $10,000 he got a few hours ago. He goes, okay, buddy, go. Just do me a favor. Next time, come a little earlier. He goes to sleep. He puts the hat. Everything is good. Day's over. Next day, 2:15 in the morning. Hello? Opens the door. He's in his robe. Poor guy. What do you want? Again? 2 o'clock in the morning. He goes, no. Listen, not the hat. The hat again? The hat's still here. He goes, no, I don't want the hat. He goes, what? My jacket. I'm finished with the jacket. I want to put my jacket on my nail. He goes, what's with you at 2 o'clock in the morning? You can't come at 12, at 10, at 8 like normal people. I just finished with the jacket now. I don't need the jacket now. So what, am I going to carry it for no reason? It's heavy. It's a big jacket. Can I put it on my nail? Okay, put it on the nail. The guy's getting a little frustrated. But next day, 3:30 in the morning. Hello? Poor guy, what do you want now? I need my hat. The jacket too? No, just a hat. Why couldn't you come sooner? I just needed that. I didn't need it before. And every day the poor guy, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, every day for 10 days straight, he's coming. He says, listen, after 10 days of this, he tells him, listen, no more. Here's your $10,000. I'm finished with you. He goes, no, I'm not no refunds. No, what do you want? I bought it. It's mine. It's my property. He goes, I don't want to. I goes, we signed the deal. You cashed the check already. The check cleared. I don't want the money back. I like my nail. He goes, stop coming at 3 o'clock in the morning. He goes, I come whenever I have. It's my nail. It's my property. I'll take you to court. He goes, take me to court. They go to court. Now the millionaire thinks that This is ridiculous. Every normal judge is going to judge it in his favor. Because, Your Honor, this guy's crazy. I'm willing to give him his $10,000 back. I'll give him $15,000. Just leave me alone. The judge says, listen, according to this contract, there's nothing you can do. It's his nail. He's allowed to go and see his nail and whenever he wants. You have to comply with this. He couldn't believe his eyes. He leaves the court with a long face, trying to figure out a solution, but realizing he doesn't have one. And over the next 10 days, he suffers even more than he did the first 10 days. At 1 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the morning, at 3 o'clock in the morning, the hat and the jacket and the shoes and this, and I just want to look at the nail, and I just want to touch the nail. Maybe I'll put a picture on the nail. After another 10 days, the guy shows up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He says, here you go. Here's the keys to the whole house. I'm leaving. That's the mashal. That's the parable. What's the nimshal? The nimshal, Rabotai Yekarim, is that the millionaire is us. The guy that bought the nail is the Satan. The Satan comes to you and says, listen, I want to take your entire Olam Haba at once. You say, no, are you crazy? I was born religious. I was born with a kippah. I came out of my mom's with a kippah on already. What are you talking about? I'm religious from birth. I did chuva. I did this. No, don't take my Olam Haba. I want my Olam Haba. Okay, fine. He comes back a few years and says, how about one nail? How about one little sin? How about a skirt that's 1.5 inches too short? It's not mini, like the rabbi keeps saying. It's not a mini. It's like, instead of covering the knee, it covers like 3/4 of the knee. Come on, what, people are paying attention for inches? Hashem really cares. He has nothing else to do but to start looking at inches. He has a whole world to run, and he's looking at inches on my skirt. Just one nail. That's how the Yetzer comes to you. One small sin. Make this small sin with this girl. Don't touch her. Just look at her once. But she's not your wife. It's okay. Just look once. Just go into the McDonald's one time. Get the coffee. Coffee? What do they have? Pig and coffee? When was the last time you ate pig and coffee together? It's just coffee. Why, they have black coffee with pig feet in it? No, it's just coffee from McDonald's. No, one little nail, kapara alecha, one nail. One nail. That's the Yetzer. Yetzer tells you, I just want one nail. And then he comes 2 o'clock in the morning. He says, how does my nail? How's my nail? I want another nail. I want another nail. I want another nail. And unless you know what's going to happen to you in the grave, unless you know what's going to happen after the grave, unless you know that a Kadosh Baruch Hu does not let anyone go, guess what? Eventually, you're going to give him his whole house. You're going to give him the whole house. You're going to go and meet with the Pope and say, Pope, I agree with you. Eventually, we're going to convert all of them. It doesn't start with everything. It starts with a nail. This is why, Rabotai, it's critical to teach fear. It's the only way people stay religious, according to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Without fear, nothing works. Lastly, I'll give you a chidush to show you what is Da'at Torah, what does the Torah say, just on the way of thinking of people. The Gemara in Maseret Rosh Hashanah and also Maseret Sanhedrin mentions this. There are several types of people that are psulim le'edut, that they're forbidden from being used as witnesses in a religious ceremony. For example, you want to get married, you need 2 witnesses. If one of these people is a witness in your marriage ceremony, guess what? Your marriage ceremony is not valid. If the person, for example, is a mechalel Shabbat, and he was one of your witnesses, your marriage is not valid. If you have some type of murder, and he's the one that saw it, we cannot use him as a witness. He's not reliable. But it's not just for murderers and mechaleh Shabbat. They're saying there's certain types of people that if they do something, you can't use them as witnesses. Eluen psulim. These are the ones who are ineligible to be witnesses with regards to the new moon. Meaning even something as simple as telling you when is the Rosh Chodesh. In the old days, before we have the modern day calendar that the grandson of Hillel, Rabbi Hillel, put together, that we still use and will continue to use until Mashiach comes, in order to identify Rosh Chodesh, they would have to identify the new moon. Had to be witnesses. But if this witness was one of these people, cannot be a witness. Yeah, but he saw it. Irrelevant. We can't trust him. And it says, someone who misachek b'kubiya, someone who plays with dice, somebody that gambles. Someone who malveh beribit, someone who lends money with interest. Someone who's mafrichei onim, someone who's a dove racer, meaning he's not only a gambler, but he's a sophisticated gambler. Like, for example, the equivalent of poker today. Poker is not the same thing as blackjack or roulette. It's more sophisticated, requires training, requires logic, and so on. So that's the second type of gambler. First type of gambler doesn't require any skill. You're just throwing dice. Second type of gambler, you have to train your doves and so on. Requires certain skill. Next one is soche shvi'it, the shvi'it merchants. Next is someone who sells slaves. And these are the general rule. Also, women cannot be witnesses for different reasons. But here we see that we have an unusual halacha. Why is it unusual? Because the Torah doesn't actually say that someone who plays with dice or someone who gambles is not valid to be a witness. The rabbi said it. Why did the rabbi say it? The rabbi said because the Torah forbid stealing. Torah forbids stealing. And when you gamble and you beat the other person, he doesn't really want to give you the money. I don't want to give you the money. Even though there's rules. He doesn't want to give you the money, but still, he came into the game thinking he's going to win. He didn't come to the game thinking he's going to lose. So when he loses and he gives you the money, it's against his will. Which means if you take money from somebody against his will, it's stealing. But the Torah didn't say that gambling is this. It says stealing is not allowed. Someone that mamash stole. Someone that mamash stole, he's the one that is forbidden from being a witness. Not someone that gambles. So why is somebody that gambles with chance or somebody that gambles with skill both considered psulim le'edut? Because the Torah says if you're a thief, you're not a valid witness. Now, to be a thief is not a one-step process. It's not one nail. To be a thief is a process. First, you have to think that the world owes you something. Simply being arrogant. Simply being entitled. Simply being born in this generation, if you will. The world owes you something. Just the mentality. Alone. That's the first nail. After a while, you realize, oh, the world's not giving me everything I want. I'm going to take it. If they're not going to give it to me, I'm going to take what's mine. Why? Because you have a belief in your heart. It's yours. It's yours for the taking. That's a very common saying in the business world. It's yours for the taking. It's yours. So you take because you believe it's yours, even though it's really his. Even though it's really hers. Even though it's somebody else's. And that's what's required to know. That's what's required to understand in order to eventually get to a point of completely being a thief. Now, the sages are teaching us here, it's not that gambling itself is not allowed. It's the fact that if you know that it's not allowed to gamble, but you still do it, that means that you're obsessed with money. And if you're obsessed with money, for sure, eventually you will become a thief. And when are you going to become a thief? When you have the opportunity. When are you going to have an opportunity? When you're a witness and somebody wants to bribe you. Hey, listen, I'm innocent. Yeah, you're innocent, buddy. Listen, $10 million, I'm innocent. Buddy, you're Moshe Rabbeinu. I can't believe they're even accusing you. And that, Rabotai, is how the halacha works. That's how the Torah works. It's not they just said it because they said it. They said, listen, the gambling itself, it's no good, but it doesn't actually cancel out the whole witness. It's the fact that we know where the gambling leads to. The gambling leads to other things. Why? Because the mentality, the ideology is wrong. The ideology is corrupt. If you think it's okay to gamble, that means you have an obsession with money. If you have an obsession with money, you'll do anything for money, including meeting with the Pope, including selling out your nation, including selling out people, including anything. Everything has a price. Everything has a price. And that makes you dangerous. Only way to get out of it, of this obsession, is by understanding that at some point, all of us run out of time. And at that point, the clock starts, all anew, but in a different place, with different types of fire. That fire can act in two different ways. Gemara Masechet Chagigah says, fire and tzaddikim, they can be friends. Why? Because tzaddikim are fire. The tzaddikim themselves, they're fire. They're stronger than the fire. But Reshaim, they get burned by fire. If the person is tzaddik, the fire won't touch him. If the person is a Rasha, the fire will burn him. And it's very important to know that if you do everything a Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you're going to arrive to heaven with no worries whatsoever. Why? You worked your whole life for this day. Your whole life you worked for this day. What are you worried about? That's what you did. But if you ignore Hashem, you ignore the Torah, you ignore what it actually says, unfortunately, when the clock runs out, the suffering only begins. And it's important to know. This is the solution for every one of our lives. This is the solution for every one of our communities. This is the solution for our nation. It's not a matter of scaring people because we like, telling people scary stuff. It's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you have to be scared. In order to do my will, you have to be scared. Because naturally, you're not. So you have to learn enough in order to make you scared. Because that's the only thing that's going to help you when the guy comes telling you, I'll pay you $10,000 for one nail. And gives you an offer that most people can't refuse. If you know that nail is a lot more expensive than $10,000, you're not going to sell it. Any questions? Okay. You missed the main part.
Which part?
Part that you missed, you have to watch on the internet. Any questions that have nothing to do with that part?
The main part before or just right now?
The part that you lost when you walked out. Any questions?
Okay, first of all, what's it called? You said that Mechalel Shabbat is not allowed to be a witness, right?
Not allowed.
How
No.
do you know if it's a Mechalel Shabbat? Let's say somebody says, I keep Shabbat, and he does Borer. Amen. He does Borer, he does this. He didn't learn Lamet at Malachot Shabbat. Where does that?
Mechalel Shabbat b'Faresia.
What? Stay in your lane. Listen.
Mechalel Shabbat b'Faresia. Someone that drives to shul on Shabbat. Not somebody that's Mechalel Shabbat b'Shogeg, but even if he violates Shabbat because he's ignorant, that's also a problem. That's the job of the rabbi. That's the job of the rabbi that's doing chuppah and kiddushin. He's supposed to pick the witnesses that are going to be two reliable kosher people. The rabbi is supposed to pick two reliable people. If the groom is picking two of his friends, then the groom is putting his own future on the
So
line.
somebody that play poker or play in stock markets cannot be, what's it called, witness?
Poker, not stock market. Stock market is two different things.
Also gambling. What about anybody has an iPhone? What Chaim Kanievsky says anybody has an iPhone, pasul edut.
Rav-
Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chaim.
Rabbi Kanievsky never said that.
Never said it? I'll show it to you after the lesson if you want כתוב. כי זה נכון, מה, זה שיעור תורה, לומדים תורה, שואלים שאלות.
Oh, he never said that.
There's one rabbi that wants to put cameras in the graves to see the chibur hakever. Alav Edley, Alav Menachem Edley. He wants to because the chibur hakever also, if you say the pasuk that includes your name, not just starts. So he said he wants to put cameras in the graves to see what.
Not allowed.
Yeah, it's pretty sick that he.
Not allowed.
Think about it.
Yeah, if you want to really get scared, just go to the graves at night. Go to the gravesite at night and listen to the graves. You'll hear screams.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
So when you're referring to the neighbors at the grave or
The other souls' bodies.
cemeteries,
Yes.
is that the actual people that are physically active in the cemetery?
Yes.
Or are people close to or that
No, it's
know
people that are screaming at the person from Gehenom and also from the gravesite.
the people you may or may not have known during
Okay.
So you want to tell me if I go to a bet kvalot, I hear not in kolot?
If it's possible, yeah.
Possible, but not for sure, because I've been and I didn't hear.
Okay. So
And I'm
try.
not talking only about Rabbi Mirvis in Queens. I'm talking about Ola Kiva, Chadela, Hulon, Bate Almin.
No, not a gravesite of tzaddikim. Gravesite of reshaim.
L'shaim, achi l'shaim.
Oh, okay. So go sleep there. Sleep there for a couple of nights. You'll hear a few things.
But I chilled there for a little while, I didn't hear no voices.
Oh no, you'll hear hear some voices. Next question.
Come on, guys, ask some questions. That's what
It's finished. The shiur is finished. You came at the end. They're here already for almost 2.5 hours.
questions were only at the end. There's no question at the beginning.
But said that we have another shiur tomorrow night. Where are we tomorrow? Where are we tomorrow? Aventura. Okay, B'ezrat Hashem down the street. We'll have another shiur. We'll start a new Mishnah B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow. Not about chibut kever, not as scary B'ezrat Hashem. But B'ezrat Hashem, listen, this is just one of those shiurim that you just simply need to know once in your life, and hopefully it's enough to never have to relearn it again because you know it and it's stuck in your brain. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.